Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are jumping right into an idea that, on the surface, feels pretty aggressive, maybe even a little depressing.
but which our source material argues is actually one of the most profoundly freeing insights a person can have.
It's this simple, almost unsettling concept. In the deepest sense, no one really cares about you.
And once you truly internalize that, really get it, the entire landscape of your life just changes.
Exactly. When you first hear it phrased like that, it sounds so cold. But we're not talking about being meaningless or isolated.
No, not at all. We're talking about shedding this immense weight of self-doubt and pressure.
The feeling that we're constantly being watched and, I don't know, scored by some invisible jury.
That anxiety is the whole issue. So the deep dive today is all about how we stop carrying that crushing, invisible weight, that worry about judgment, once we realize that the audience judging us is, well, almost entirely imaginary.
So our mission is to explore why realizing that no one is keeping a scorecard of your life is maybe the single most powerful key to getting your sense of choice back, to stripping away all that unnecessary regret.
What happens when we finally accept that the spotlight we feel on us is actually off?
It means we can step out of what the sources call our mental theater.
Oh,
Okay, let's unpack that. This mental theater idea. It feels like the core pattern here is that we walk around convinced we're the star of some ongoing performance.
yeah. And that everyone else is the audience.
Right.
That's the illusion, precisely. We live life like it's a one-person show. But the huge irony is that every single person you meet thinks they're the star.
And I'm just a background character in their movie.
Exactly. You're in their script. We're all, sort of trapped in our own mental theater, completely focused on our own performance. We're convinced the spotlight is on us.
When really everyone else is too busy worrying about their spotlight to even look at yours.
It's an audience of people, all just intensely focused on themselves.
The sources had a great way to prove this, the memory test.
Oh, this is so validating. Just think back for a second. Go back to your younger self, maybe your 20s or 30s. Remember worrying for days about saying the wrong thing at work?
Oh, yeah. Or wearing a terrible outfit to a party, that feeling of just replaying the moment and cringing.
We've all been there. Now, try to recall anyone else's specific embarrassing moments from back then. Their missteps, their bad choices.
I mean, maybe one or two really spectacular, huge failures, but honestly, no. I can't remember what other people wore or that awkward thing they said in a toast.
You remember few, if any. And the reason is so simple. While you were obsessed with being watched, everyone else was doing the exact same thing.
Worrying about themselves.
They barely even registered your huge mistake. And if they did, the memory was gone almost instantly.
It's actually kind of painful to realize how much mental energy is just wasted carrying a memory that for everyone else just evaporated.
And that connects to the bigger picture, right? We have to ask, where does this deep feeling of being evaluated even come from?
It has to start somewhere.
It starts with necessity. As kids, we are being watched constantly by parents, by teachers. We're taught the rules, how to behave, how not to embarrass the family.
Which you need for socialization, for safety. But at some point, that external voice, the parent or the teacher, it becomes internal.
It becomes completely internalized. You build this imaginary observer in your head. It's like a phantom, always ready to disapprove, to hand out a penalty.
So you're carrying around the social rule book for a game that maybe ended decades ago.
And for so many people, that internal voice becomes their default setting, whispering things like, don't make a scene, or just stay small, what will people think?
The evolutionary hardwiring piece here is so crucial because it explains why the alarm feels so intense.
Absolutely. For most of human history, fitting in was survival. If the tribe rejected you, that could literally mean death.
And our brains haven't caught up to the fact that we now live in climate-controlled apartments.
Exactly. The world changed way faster than our limbic system did. So that ancient fear gets translated into modern social anxiety. The fear of being misunderstood or judged for a belief or...
Or in today's world, the fear of being canceled by the digital tribe.
It's the same mechanism. Be careful, don't stand out.
Yeah.
But the stakes are no longer life and death.
And we spend this just incalculable amount of energy feeding that obsolete alarm, editing what we say, curating our lives. It is exhausting.
Let's nail that down with the anecdote from the source material. The spilled drink at a party.
Right.
If you spill a drink, you're instantly mortified. People might glance over for what 30 seconds?
Hmm.
A minute, maybe, while you clean it up?
Meanwhile, you are replaying that exact moment in your head for 3 days straight. You might cringe about it weeks later.
You're carrying this heavy, agonizing memory that no one else is even holding. That's the imbalance. We think people are keeping a detailed record of our mistakes when they forget. They move on to worrying about their own stuff.
So the realization isn't cruel at all. It's actually an intellectual lever to pull us out of that cycle.
When the audience is imaginary, the rule book loses all its power.
And that's got to be especially true for people who grew up when social rules were much more rigid, right? Small towns where reputation was everything.
For sure. They're often still carrying that pressure, even if they now live in a big city where nobody knows their business. The moment you stop trying to manage all those perceptions, you get all that energy back. You don't become a jerk. You stop performing for them.
And this is where the principle really scales up. It's one thing to worry about daily life, but think about huge innovation. The sources gave some really sharp examples.
Yeah, think about the person going all in on electric cars a decade ago,
People thought they were crazy.
or trying to commercialize reusable landing rockets, or talking about making humanity a multiplanetary species. All those ideas were met with huge skepticism.
Laughter, even.
And the sources point out that most of that reaction was just noise. It was people projecting their own fears and their own limitations onto the innovator. If the goal had been to make the critics comfortable, nothing would have ever happened.
The fear of looking foolish would have been the ultimate brake pedal.
And that's the real takeaway for you listening.
Yes.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to use this. It applies everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just saying what you actually believe at dinner.
Or wearing something you love, even if some invisible rule book says it's not age appropriate.
Or finally taking that hobby or career path that other people think is silly. The question is always, are you doing this for you? Or are you doing it because you're afraid of the judgment of people who, frankly, aren't even thinking about you?
And that realization, the freedom of just stepping off the stage, it sounds amazing, but this is where it gets really interesting.
It is. Because once you realize no one is watching, you're faced with something much harder to deal with than judgment. Exactly. And that's the paradox of freedom. It sounds great, but it's also terrifying because it means you're now fully responsible. You can't blame the fear of judgment anymore for holding you back.
When you were living for approval, you had a script to follow. You knew the lines.
You knew what the good parent or the successful employee was supposed to do. But when you step into real freedom, there's this kind of psychological dizziness. You have to rely entirely on your own internal compass, your values, your desires.
Okay, but hold on. Isn't some of that just maturity? I mean, being a good parent or a good partner is supposed to involve compromising, right? How do you separate necessary responsibility from this erosion of self?
That's the critical distinction. Responsibility is a conscious choice.
Mhm.
I choose to prioritize this duty because it aligns with my values.
Oh.
The erosion of self happens through tiny, unconscious compromises made purely out of fear.
So it's not about prioritizing your kids. It's about biting your tongue for a decade at family dinners or taking on a project you hate just to avoid a confrontation with your boss.
Exactly. Those aren't choices. They're small acts of suffocation, and they accumulate. So many people hit their 50s and realize they never even asked, who am I when no one's watching?
They spent so long playing the roles that they lost the person underneath. They participated in their own disappearance.
And this connects to what the sources call cooperating with illusions. It's not outright lying. It's that subtle self-deception that keeps uncomfortable truths away.
Like pretending you don't know something is true because facing it would be too painful.
Staying in a job you hate for 10 years because it's easier to say, I have no choice, than to admit you're terrified to start over. Or maintaining hollow friendships because the difficult conversation is harder than the loneliness that might come after.
And the cost of not questioning it just builds up silently. It turns into that low-grade hollowness, that emotional exhaustion that rest doesn't fix.
And we tell ourselves this is just what being an adult is. But that feeling is the quiet signal that the external script has completely overwritten your internal self.
So if we accept all that, how do we actually switch off the autopilot? How do we reclaim that sovereignty? It must feel really strange at first.
It starts with brutal honesty. Moment to
Oh.
moment, you have to start trusting your internal compass again. And the simplest way is to ask a filtering question with every single decision.
What's the question?
Am I doing this for me because it aligns with my values, or am I doing this because I'm afraid of what people will think?
And you have to be really careful because your mind will try to trick you. It'll dress up fear as responsibility. It'll say you're being polite and when you're really just avoiding a fight.
That's where the family event test comes in. If you're invited to something you really don't want to go to, you have to ask, is this obligation based on love? Or is it based on a fear of the drama or the gossip if you don't show up?
That's how you filter between meaningful feedback from people who actually matter and just meaningless noise.
Which is often just your own internalized fear projected onto other people.
So what happens when you start doing this? When you stop performing? Do people just think you've become a jerk?
Some people might get uncomfortable at first, yeah, because when you stop performing, you become real. And authenticity is magnetic, but it also messes with the expectations of people who are benefiting from your compliance.
So you might lose some people. Or, as the sources put it, you lose arrangements.
Exactly. Relationships that were based on you saying yes when you meant no, they fall away. And yeah, it's painful, but it's a necessary clearing. It makes space for genuine connections with people who like who you actually are.
So the final step is just alignment. When you know your values, your boundaries, external opinions just stop sticking. They become data, not a verdict.
And that's freedom, living consistently with who you actually are.
So what does this all mean then? We've gone from the illusion of the spotlight to the dizzying responsibility of real freedom.
And the core insight is still so simple. You were never under the scrutiny you imagined. That pressure was learned, it was never required. Realizing no one is watching doesn't make your life meaningless. It gives it back to you.
And there's one last powerful point here. Later in life can be the most free you'll ever be because you have less to lose. You're not worried about a 40-year career path anymore. You have the gift of limited time.
Use that clarity. I want you to try a one-week experiment. Don't just think about it. I want you to journal it. Write down 3 things you did today out of fear of judgment. And then write down 3 things you didn't do for the same reason.
Seeing it on paper makes that invisible weight real, tangible.
For something you can choose to put down. So ask yourself, what choice have you been postponing because you were afraid of an imaginary jury? Because being authentic without needing permission is the most revolutionary thing you can do. You never needed their permission in the first place.